Imagine standing before massive stone walls, each block perfectly cut, stacked without mortar, still standing after 900 years. No cement, no steel, no modern tools, and yet an entire city. For centuries, the world was told Africa had no great civilizations, no empires, no advanced architecture. But this city proves otherwise. This is Great Zimbabwe, the ancient capital of a medieval African empire that once controlled gold, trade, and power across southern Africa. An empire so wealthy, its influence reached China and the Middle East. So why was it forgotten? Why was its story erased? And how did its builders achieve the impossible? Tonight, we uncover the rise, power, and mystery of Africa's greatest stone city. When European explorers arrived in southern Africa in the 1800s, they stumbled upon something that shocked them: massive stone ruins, walls taller than a two-story building, circular enclosures stretching across the hills. They refused to believe Africans built it. Instead, wild theories emerged. Some claimed it was built by King Solomon. Others blamed the Phoenicians or even lost white civilizations. Anything except Africans. Why? Because Great Zimbabwe shattered a dangerous myth that Africa had no complex societies before colonization. But archaeology would prove otherwise. Carbon dating, pottery, tools, and oral traditions all pointed to the same truth. Great Zimbabwe was built by the ancestors of the Shona people. Between 1100 and 1450 AD, this city thrived as the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe. The name Zimbabwe comes from the Shona phrase Jimba za Mabwe, meaning houses of stone. This was not just a city name, it was a symbol of power. Stone architecture in Africa was rare. Wood and clay were common. Stone meant permanence, authority, royal control. To build in stone was to declare dominance. Great Zimbabwe was not just a settlement, it was a political statement. The most astonishing feature of Great Zimbabwe is how it was built. Over 1 million granite blocks cut, shaped, and stacked without mortar. This technique is called dry stone masonry. Each stone was shaped to fit precisely against the next. Gravity and precision kept the walls standing. The Great Enclosure, the crown jewel of the city. Walls over 11 meters high, 250 meters in circumference. The largest ancient stone structure south of the Sahara. No one knows its exact function. Possibilities include royal residence, religious center, symbol of royal authority. Inside there are narrow stone corridors, curved walls, hidden entrances. Everything controlled movement. Power was not shouted, it was designed. High above the city sits the hill complex. This was likely the royal and spiritual heart of Great Zimbabwe. From here, rulers could oversee the entire city control ceremonies, display dominance from above. In many African cultures, height equals authority. The higher you live, the closer you are to the ancestors. The hill complex housed elite structures, sacred spaces, possibly royal advisors and spiritual leaders. This separation created a class hierarchy. Rulers on the hill, elite within the enclosures. Common citizens below Great Zimbabwe was not chaotic, it was carefully organized. Great Zimbabwe did not rise by chance. It rose because of gold. The surrounding region was rich in gold deposits. The empire controlled mining and trade routes. Gold from Great Zimbabwe traveled to the Swahili coast, across the Indian Ocean, to Arabia, Persia, and China. Chinese porcelain has been found at the site. So have Persian glass beads. This was not an isolated African city. It was part of a global economy. The rulers taxed trade, controlled supply, and grew unimaginably wealthy. Great Zimbabwe was the financial heart of southern Africa. So how did people live here? Archaeology reveals cattle enclosures, grain storage pits, cooking areas, artisan workshops. Cattle were wealth. More cattle meant higher status. Homes were built from wood frames, clay walls, thatched roofs. Stone was reserved for elites, royals, sacred structures. This contrast reinforced social order. Religion was deeply tied to nature, ancestors, and spirits. Leadership was both political and spiritual. The king ruled not just land, but meaning. Among the ruins, archaeologists found something iconic: stone bird sculptures. The Zimbabwe birds. Carved from soapstone, these birds likely represented royal ancestors, spiritual guardians, divine authority. They were placed in sacred locations. Today, the Zimbabwe bird appears on the national flag, currency, national symbols. It is a reminder that this ancient city still defines modern Zimbabwe's identity. Around 1450 AD, Great Zimbabwe was abandoned. But why? Historians suggest multiple causes: overpopulation, environmental exhaustion, deforestation, water shortages, shift in trade routes. As power moved north to new centers like Kami, Great Zimbabwe slowly emptied. There was no dramatic collapse, no invasion, just silence. The city faded back into the land, waiting centuries to be rediscovered. When Europeans arrived centuries later, they rewrote the story. African origins were denied, evidence was destroyed or ignored. But truth has weight. Stone does not lie. Today, Great Zimbabwe is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a symbol of African achievement, proof of a forgotten empire. It stands as a challenge to false histories. Great Zimbabwe is more than ruins. It is evidence, resistance, identity. It proves Africa did not wait to be civilized. Africa built empires on its own terms, stone by stone, generation by generation. And though empires fall, their stories remain, if we choose to remember them. Before the world doubted Africa, Africa built in stone, and it still stands.